The welcome viewer to this session on stress analysis basics. In our previous sessions, we have introduced FEM and we have introduced the LISA software. And to use any finite element software for stress analysis, we must understand theory of stress and the different aspects related to stress for designing. In this course, our focus will be on stress analysis. So in this session, we will be discussing concept of stress in brief, stress-strain relations, monoclinic, orthotropic, and isotropic materials. We will be winding up this session after introducing you to allowable stress and deformation. So let us begin with these three most important terms that we come across during the stress analysis or otherwise whenever we talk about any material, whether this material is homogeneous, isotropic and anisotropic. So these two terms are more popular and we generally use these two terms quite often than anisotropic material because our analysis is largely assume that the material is homogeneous and isotropic. So an isotropic material has properties that are same in all the direction. For example, Young's modulus or modulus of elasticity of the steel is same in all the direction. What does it mean? If we take one particular piece of material, that is steel, and we cut specimen for a small specimen for testing, some specimen we can take in this direction, some specimen we cut in this direction and from this orientation and so on. So whatever may be the orientation or the direction of specimen that we are cutting, if we test these specimen, the properties will remain same. If the properties will remain is same in all the direction, it means the material is isotropic, and steel is an isotropic material. The steel is also homogeneous material because the properties in homogeneous material, they are same at all the points in the body. It means if we measure property at this particular point, then or this particular point or this particular point or this particular point, then the properties will remain same. So that is what the meaning of homogeneous body is. So now let us try to differentiate between the homogeneous and isotropic. So if we have some steel rod like this steel rod is no doubt homogeneous as well as isotropic, and we heat this to quite a high temperature at one end. Once we start heating, then what will happen? The temperature of this rod will be varying from one end to another end. And we know that modulus of elasticity and other material properties, they generally depend on the temperature. It means that the value of properties that we evaluate at this point, now at this point and this point will be different. So it means when we heat a rod to a quite high temperature, then this becomes non-homogeneous. If we again measure the properties, suppose here by taking the specimen in this direction or taking the specimen in this direction or this direction, then the material properties will be same. So it means when we heat this, it remains isotropic, but it is now non-homogeneous. A material is anisotropic if the properties are different in different direction. So we'll be taking the in detail how to represent these materials mathematically in our next slides. With this background about the material, so let us introduce you to the concept of stress at a point. So whenever we calculate stress or develop any equation or formula for stress, it is always at a point. So detailed discussion about the concept of stress is available in my other video. The link is given in the description. We will be moving fast for revising the concept of stress. So stress, if we assume that this particular body is subjected to n number of forces and we are focusing at this point, we cut this body through the section shown here and we obtain this type of body. And we can see that if we take small element around this particular point O, then this is how it is shown. The resultant force, internal force that will be developed may be assumed as delta F, where n is the normal to this surface that is used for finding out the direction cosines of the different planes. So we can find out the stresses because of this in actually resultant force on the small element, which is given by this limit delta A tends to 0 delta F by delta A. Why we take very small area? Because we do not want that this particular element be subjected to any moment. So this force, it is the element is taken so small that only resultant which is acting on this small element is force. So that is why we take delta A tends to 0 and we find the stress is equal to this. So we can resolve this component T, the general stress, in three component because of the three-dimensional nature. It is one is known as XX component, XY component and XZ component. So if it means we are resolving in this direction and Y direction and Z direction. So this particular component which is perpendicular to this plane YZ component is known as normal stress, whereas these stresses are known as shear stresses. So if we generally represent normal stress by sigma and shear stress by tau, so that is how we can write down. We can, if we take the cuboid element rather than one surface, then we can write down the other components as well. So what does it mean? That there are 9 components of the stress in 3D situation. So these 9 components are shown here and we can represent these 9 components on this cuboid element. The stresses shown here, they are in positive sense. So it means it is must for us to know what exactly is the meaning of positive sense of stress. So when a stress is acting in the direction and the direction of plane on which it is acting, both are same, then it is a positive sense. So it means here this x is in this direction and this plane is also having normal in the same direction, this sigma x is positive, whereas this direction is negative x and the direction of the plane is also negative, so this is also positive. So if any one of these are in the same is not in the same direction, is one positive another negative, then it is a negative state, negative stress. So likewise the shear stress, this is the stress, this is the direction of the plane, that is this x is the direction of plane and y is the direction of stress. So this is also positive and both are positive. This particular stress is acting in positive y direction and the plane on which it is acting is positive x. So this is also a positive stress. Likewise the stress is acting in positive z direction and the plane is along positive x. So that is why it is positive. So if any of the direction is opposite, then it is negative. If either both are positive or both are negative, then it is a positive stress. So you can take example of this particular component. This is acting in negative z direction on a plane which is indicating in negative x direction. So both are negative, so it is positive state of stress. So in this particular case, all stresses are shown in their positive sense, whether they are acting along negative y-axis or positive y-axis, because stress is a tensor quantity and tensor depends on not only on magnitude, direction, but it also depends on the plane on which it is acting, that quantity is acting. So with this background, now we can write down this in matrix form, and the moment equation for static equilibrium of this particular member will give us these three shear stresses will be equal. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 component, and in 2D there will be 4 components and 2 will be equal, so that is why there are 3 stress component. So we have 3 stress components in 2D case, 6 stress component in 3D case. So now coming to the stress strain relations, we have 6 component of stress as we have discussed in our previous slide for 3D state of stress. So there will be corresponding 6 strain components, because we know from Hooke's law that this stress is equal to E times epsilon. This is for 1D case. So this, if we expand this to 3D case, so each stress will be having its corresponding strain component. The deformation of a small square element is shown here, and we can see A is shifted to this point and D is shifted to this and B is shifted to this and C is shifted to this. So this is what the original component will look like, and then we have the deformation. This dotted is this, and this is the deformed component. And we know the normal stress is equal to the change in length in the direction in which we are calculating normal stress with respect to the dimension, and then the deformation with respect to y direction and z direction. So u, v, w are field variable if we talk about in terms of finite element method, and the gradient is known as the strain components. And shear strain are basically the definition of shear strain that generally people get confused in shear strain. It is the angle between side from 90 degrees. So this is very important definition of shear strain. So in your opinion, how can we find out the shear strain for this particular deformed component? You please write down and try to check what we discussed just after this. So the shear strain for this case is theta 1 plus theta 2, because this is the total deformation that has taken place from the 90 degree. So this is 90 degree angle, and the change in angle in 90 degree is theta 1 plus theta 2. So if theta 1 is 0, generally we get this type of figures in book, very common figure in book, that you apply force here and this is the deformed shape and this is shear strain. But this doesn't give us the complete concept of shear strain, because shear strain is given by the angle, change in angle from the 90 degree. So this is how we can find out shear strain. So theta 1 we can write down as arc over the length, and theta 2 again this arc over length. So likewise we can write down the different expressions for shear strain for 3D case. So now we have 6 stress components, 6 strain components. Strain components are written in terms of the deformation, because deformation is the main thing which is creating strain, and strain is creating stresses, and that is why and also we can measure deformation, and we can evaluate deformation even when we talk about the finite element method. So now we can connect this and this, because in 1D we connect this with the modulus of elasticity, and if we want to connect this stress, 6 stress with 6 strain components, this will be equal to some matrix, and the size of that matrix should be 6 into 6, so that we get 6 into 6 here and 6 into 1 here, and finally 6 into 1 is the size of this stress matrix. And this is how it should be written, that it is, these are the 6 into 6, 36 components of material, which is representing the modulus of elasticity in case of 3D stress analysis. But need not to worry, we are not going to evaluate all 36 components. We will try to reduce the number of unknown of the 36 component. This is a symmetrical matrix, and it means only this upper triangle or the lower triangle will be of our use or the unknown. Once we know one side of this, the other side will be directly known to us. So it means we need 21 independent elastic constant and at any point for an isotropic or allotropic material. So here I am using this particular word, a point, everywhere when we refer to stress or we refer to modulus of elasticity or any material properties. It means stress is always at a point, and the properties that we evaluate are also referring to a particular point. So with this, now we can introduce, try to reduce the elastic constant that we are getting, 21 elastic constant for the different materials. So in monoclinic material, it has one plane of material symmetry in case of monoclinic material. So if we have this type of material and we take small element in this and represent this element like this, apply the stress in z direction or the third principal axis, and if a material is monoclinic, then what will happen? This face, this particular face where this sigma 3 is applied, and this face, they will be deformed like this, and the other faces, these four faces, they will remain rectangle, and it means there is no shear strain in this plane and in this plane. So this plane is 2-3 plane and this plane is 1-3 plane. So that is why the shear strain in these two planes are 0, and we have one plane of symmetry, and this reduces our elastic constants from 21 to 13 independent elastic constants at a point. Again, this at a point is very important phrase that we will be using and in this complete analysis. So for monoclinic material, we now reduced our elastic constant to 13, and it has one plane of symmetry. So next is orthotropic material. So material in which there exist three mutually perpendicular planes of symmetry. So in this case, if I apply a load inducing stress in this particular direction, so in this case all the faces of this particular cuboid element will remain rectangular, and that is why there is no strain in these three, no shear strain in either of these. So that is why these will be 0, and we get this stiffness matrix, and this is compliance matrix. This matrix that we relate the strain and stress is compliance matrix, and as in the earlier analysis as well, we are only applying sigma 3, so that is why this sigma 3 is appearing there. All other component in the stress side is 0. And now we have reduced the unknowns from 21 for the allotropic or anisotropic material to 9 for orthotropic material, and it was 13 for monoclinic material. So now coming to the most common or most simple material is isotropic, which is most common, and steel is isotropic material. So in this we have infinite planes of symmetry. That is why you take one particular specimen, cut in any direction, the symmetry is there, and that is why the values of elastic constant is same everywhere in any direction. So that is why we get this type of stiffness matrix, and all these components of elements of the stiffness matrix, they are represented by two independent elastic constant. Now again, it is independent elastic constant because if we know value of E and value of nu, then we can find out what are the other elastic constant, that G and K, modulus of rigidity or bulk modulus. So that is all for this different types of material. That So finally we come to the end of this session with this particular slide, and very important one. Quickly go through the stress strain relation, stress strain curve. So this, up to this point, it is proportional limit, line is straight. From proportional to elastic, line should be curved, and then it should increase as true stress strain, and this is Bridgman corrected true curve, and this is engineering curve, that all we are aware of all these things. So value of this particular slope is nothing but modulus of elasticity, and we know the modulus of elasticity for steel is approximately 200 gigapascal. So it means the slope of this curve should be approximately 90 degree, 89 point something. So, and that is why whenever we draw stress strain diagram, I always emphasize this concept. It should be as close to the abscissa as we can draw, because the modulus of elasticity, especially for the steel, is approximately giving us 90 degree of the curve, 90 degree angle. And when we talk about static analysis, if you remember, when we in our second session we discussed about the different FEA, finite element analysis capabilities, and then there we discuss the static stress analysis. When we analyze any material for static stress analysis, it will not give us the fracture point. Basically it means what? When we increase the load on a component, the stress will increase. Only the color of the representation of the stress will give us that value is higher, and how much higher, it doesn't matter to this software, because it works only for the linear assumption, and we assume that stress is directly proportional to strain. Wherever it goes, it is directly proportional to strain. That is what basically is the meaning of static linear analysis that we will be doing. It means if we analyze any component in such a way that stress even sometimes increases to the values, maybe we give any arbitrary value of f for any arbitrary chosen geometry of the member, we may get stress as 4000 megapascal, 10,000 megapascal. So and these stresses are not possible because steel has the yield point, I use SYT for yield strength, approximately 200 megapascal or 200 to 250 megapascal. And it means when we design any component, we take some factor of safety as given here, and if we take, generally we take factor of safety of 3 for static analysis. It means the value of stress, design value of stress, comes out to be approximately 80 megapascal. So we must get stress which is less than 80 megapascal, and in static stress analysis, it is to the analyst who has to view the result of the finite element analysis from any software and analyze and understand and take the decision whether the material is safe or not, depending on our design value of stress. Finite element analysis result for static linear analysis is not going to give you any idea whether or any information that this particular material is failing or not, the general static linear analysis. So that's all for this session. We have discussed the few material properties because every material properties or every term will be available inside the software, and we have to pick the appropriate value, we have to place or input the appropriate values, and that we can do or choose the material only if we understand what are the different materials type and how and where and why we have to give these data. So thank you all the viewers for attending the session. Thanks a lot.